Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Employee Engagement, the Work-Life Blueprint. This program is part of the SHRM webcast series. You can learn about upcoming and on-demand events from our e-newsletters and the webcast homepage at shrm.org/webcast. SHRM thanks ADP for sponsoring this program and our series of free webcasts for the HR community. Before we hear from today's speakers, provide us some guidance on using the SHRM webcast interface. In the center of the screen, you see the title slide for this presentation. You can move that screen by clicking and dragging it. You can also change the size of the display by dragging that window from the right. Or there's a large square sizer in the upper right of the window. You can click full screen viewing. Under the SHRM logo, you see the video window. There you'll see our presenters who you'll hear from shortly. You can move and resize the video window the same way you can the slide screen. We encourage you to ask questions throughout this webcast. Under the resources window, you'll find the Q&A widget. You can use that to get your questions to the speakers or to our webcast tech support team if you're having any issues viewing the program. We will hold questions till the end of the presentation, and we'll get to as many as we have time for. On the bottom of your screen, there's a row of icons that control all the windows in the player. The blue one on the farther left brings up a certificate you can download towards the end of the program. It includes the SHRM certification recertification credit number. Viewing this full program qualifies for 1 PDC towards SHRM CP and SHRM SCP recertification. You can claim the program for the kinds of HR recertification credit, but you need to provide the details to your certifying body. We only have pre-approval for SHRM certification. Now about our program, Employee Engagement, the Work-Life Blueprint. I'm pleased to turn the webcast microphone over to our speakers.
Hello, and welcome to the ADP and SHRM webinar on employee engagement. We are thrilled that you're here for such a big topic that frankly has never been more relevant or constantly evolving than what we see today. So for the next hour or so, we're excited to host an interactive discussion sharing proprietary ADP research on employees' core needs in work and in life. We're going to learn about your own engagement practices. We're going to share specific case studies on how to deploy multi-generational engagement strategies, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Now, before we get started, who are we? My name is Allie McCoy, and I am the Senior Director of Client Services for our upmarket clients in the 150 to 999 employee space. I lead several teams, but one of which is our expert talent consultants for our comprehensive talent offering. And these talent consultants provide end-to-end employee engagement strategies and action plans coupled with our best-in-class technology. With me are my esteemed colleagues, Erin Larson and LaTroy Brown McCormick. Erin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Allie. I am so excited to be here today. I nerd out on all things talent strategy. I've got a background in talent strategy and have spent the last couple of years here at ADP helping to build our comprehensive talent offering that Allie mentioned, where all we do is focus on talent strategy. So I'm so excited to be here to share some of the really great things that we're doing to help our clients with employee engagement. So LaTroy, I'll pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Erin. Greetings and salutations, folks. My name is LaTroy Brown McCormick, and I am a data analytics manager with our service engagement team. Again, totally with you, Erin, on the fact that I geek out over this. I could talk about this for hours. It's a shame that we've only got 57 minutes or so left on our presentation today, but we have a lot of exciting content here to share with you. I am happy to say that I have been with ADP as a whole organization for just under 21 years. I have served in various roles throughout the organization, including payroll, HR, and finally strategy. So a part of what my team does is really partner with HR business partners who support different organizations on how to encourage employee engagement, how to initiate on strategic initiatives to gain leverage against their competition and to gain space within all of their work environments and within their communities. So we're going to talk a lot about that today, and I'm happy to get started. So with that said, I'll pass it back to you, Allie.
Thank you so much, LaTroy and Erin. We're very lucky to have you guys here and really excited to dig into today's content. All right, 3,035,000. It's a big number. What does this number represent? Take a second to think about what 3,035,000 might mean. All right, spoiler alert. It is the number of human lives who we get to touch at ADP, our clients and their employees, across our two HR outsourcing business units. And with that, we know we have a privilege and a responsibility to know more about employees today, their needs, their pain points, their motivations than any other company in the world. So let's talk about the story of talent today, from both secondary research available to all and primary research that we conducted exclusively with our own client and employee data. So today we see that now more than ever, employees are calling the shots when it comes to engagement. 1 in 5 workers say that they're likely to look for a new job within the next 6 months. And why is that? Well, employees are telling us that their companies aren't setting them up for success right off the bat. Only 12% of employees say that their organizations do a good job of onboarding. And our US employee engagement has dropped for the first time in over a decade, from 36% engagement in 2020 to 34% engagement in 2021. Now, that dip might seem relatively small, but considering that 2020 was the height of the COVID pandemic and we had still seen upward trends in the previous 10 years, it's a concerning indicator that leads us to our last stat. The pace of employee turnover is forecasted to be 50 to 75% higher in the coming years than companies have previously experienced. Meanwhile, it's taking nearly 20% longer to fill roles than pre-pandemic. So what does this all mean? You've heard of quiet quitting throughout the last couple of years, but we're now encountering what we call the grumpy stayers, a class of employees who might remain in their job but exhibit consistently negative, discontented attitudes, chronic lack of engagement. So how do we dig deep to flip these grumpy stayers into employees that actually want to exhibit that high discretionary effort? Welcome to the Work-Life Experience Blueprint. This fancy infinity loop that you see on your screen, ADP conducted proprietary research with our clients' employees to understand, what does it really mean to be human at work? What do we need to unlock our full potential? We spoke with employees across blue collar, gray collar, white collar industries. We spoke with those who were just starting their careers and those who were looking forward to retirement across the nation from both small and large organizations. And what we found is that humans are more similar than we are different. In its simplest form, employees today have 4 core needs at work: to be productive, to belong, to be inspired, and to be uniquely valued. So the graphic you see is an infinity loop intentionally rather than a start and stop journey, because each of these core needs are important to employees at different times in their life. I encourage you to think about your own life and career. When you started your very first job out of college, what did you need to feel good at your job? And now today, what do you need instead? What made you want to stay at the job that you've had or have made you want to leave in the past? So times obviously may have changed. Our work looks very different today than it used to, but the reality is that employees are just people who have different needs based off of life experiences. So I'm gonna take another couple of minutes to actually dig into this research because I find it so fascinating. The first need that we all have is to feel productive. And that's not just checking off a to-do list, but it's really fulfilling the desire that we have to create something, to feel useful. And within this need, we want to feel that we and our work is needed, that we are equipped to play our part and feel supported in our environment. Feeling as though you know how to do your job well and as though you're genuinely supported, these are those critical first steps that all employees have toward confidently contributing to their work and honestly gaining a sense of self-esteem. So how might we think about this core need during things like onboarding and how we set up training? The next need that we all have is a sense of belonging. And that's because we are really social animals at our core. When we understand where we fit in the organization, when we can share experiences with other colleagues, and when you feel like there is trust and people that have your back, you end up viewing work as a place where you're treated like a human surrounded by other humans, and you're not just a cog in the machine. So how might we think about this core need during things like hybrid work environments and defining our culture? The third core need we all have is to be inspired, because we all desire to work for something greater than ourselves. This is actually my favorite and honestly often the most elusive of all the core needs, because it requires us to think beyond I work for a payroll company, and instead frame it as I get to help 3 million people feel stable and secure enough to live the lives that they want. So at its best, work connects us to that larger purpose. It aligns our personal and professional passions, and it really gives us the opportunity to grow, not just into the role we want, but into the person we want to be. So how might we think about this core need when it comes to top-down leadership messaging and social responsibility? And then finally, our last core need is to feel uniquely valued, because we are all unique, right? We are all individuals who need recognition for our contributions, and we want to feel recognized and celebrated in the ways that make most sense to us. It may look different for different people. We want to believe that our voice matters and that the organization is as personally invested in us as we are in our work. So how might we think about this core need when it comes to rewards and recognition and career pathing? So together, this makes up the work-life experience blueprint. And we have actually reimagined ADP's touch points and offerings to help our clients align their HR and talent strategies to unlock these 4 core needs, because we know that driving meaningful engagement can reduce turnover, it unlocks discretionary effort, and it can sometimes matter even more than pay itself. All right, now that we've gone over some of the proprietary research that we've conducted here at ADP, would love to hear how you all are managing and thinking about talent and engagement in your own organizations. So our first poll question is up on the board. We want to hear from you. What you'll do is select the answer that best describes your organization. This first poll question is a simple one, but maybe not an easy one. Think about your own company. Do you feel that the majority of your employees are engaged at work? Let's give it another minute or so until we get a little more submissions. You just go ahead and select yes or no directly on the screen. Don't worry, it's anonymous, so we're not going to send this to anyone if you say no. We really want to know your truth. We want to know what's happening in your world. Do you feel the majority of employees are engaged at work at your organization? We've got about
I'm really curious to see what this one is. My assumption is no, but I'm really curious to see what everyone says.
We're going to test to see if you're right there.
We need some Jeopardy music in here.
Right. All right, I think we've reached a critical mass. So we're going to go to the next slide and see what the results tell us. Wow. Okay. Really interesting.
I was proven wrong.
We've got nearly a 50-50 split here. Aaron, LaTroy, any commentary on this before, LaTroy, you go into a little bit of the statistics of employee engagement?
I think this is an interesting one, right? It's almost a 50-50 split. And I'm curious about that because a lot of times we don't know the pulse checks, right? So we're not really sure. We think our employees are engaged, but we might be missing a few of those red flags that are out there, surfing around, or we might not ask the question. So there might be some more, but I think this is very interesting and we're going to unpack a little of that shortly.
Awesome. Thanks, LaTroy. Okay, LaTroy, if you actually want to take us through some of the ROI for why engagement really matters, that would be great.
Yeah, I would love that. So we're going to talk about the ROI, right? Why does it matter? Why does employee engagement matter to you? Why is it important to your business? So as you can see by looking at the current slide, a strong commitment to employee engagement is imperative to remaining successful and competitive. Employers who prioritize engagement for their worksite employees tend to experience increased productivity, sales, profitability, and they mitigate risk at a much higher rate than organizations that don't prioritize this. So those same organizations also experience reduced absenteeism and turnover. All of these things have a positive impact to their bottom line and the employee experience overall, which ultimately allows the employer to focus on more strategic engagement and initiatives, and it allows them to live out their mission, vision, and value statements, right? And with that, they can add so much value to their organizations through items like total compensation, strategic benefit offerings, or other incentives for their employees. We talked really quickly in the beginning about how I've been with the organization for 21 years. That example is a testament to what happens when employee engagement and satisfaction is a focus. So we just take a second and think back to that infinity loop, right? Feeling uniquely valued, feeling like you belong. It's important for your employees to be able to show up as their best selves, their most authentic selves, right? It's important for your employees to feel productive, to feel like they are adding to the vision and the success of the organization. So when we talk through some of these things, we're going to loop back to, our infinity loop, and we're gonna talk about that blueprint a lot. But these numbers don't lie. They're telling you exactly how employee engagement impacts your business, whether that is a positive impact or negative. So we're gonna aim for the negative and provide you with some tools and resources to do so. But before we do that, we're gonna talk a little bit more about what you think about your employees. So with that said, Allie, I think it's time for another poll question.
Awesome. Beautifully explained. Thank you, LaTroy. So we are on to our second poll question. And this is for those employees who you feel may not be engaged. What would you identify as the main reason? So go ahead, take a look here and select, when you think about your own organization, what would you select as one of the main reasons why employees may not be feeling engaged today? Is it hybrid remote work environment situations, whether that is you have those policies or don't have those policies, you're asking folks to come back to the office or not? Is it a lack of development or growth opportunities, career pathing? Is it pay, compensation, overall packages? Is it maybe company culture, or is it other? Please go ahead and just take another 30 seconds or so to identify what you think may be one of the main reasons why any employees in your organization who are not engaged may be feeling that way. Again, we're about half of the attendees have submitted a response, so we're going to give it another 30 seconds or so until we hit that critical mass. Definitely curious about this one.
Oh yeah, that hybrid remote work is a really big conversation. You all have been paying attention to the news. A lot of our larger companies around the country are requiring employees to come back full time. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of thoughts and opinions on that.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we will hear some of those today. All right, we are at our critical mass. So let's see. Drum roll, please. Okay, wow. This is so interesting. About a third of you said that lack of development and growth opportunities like career pathing may be contributing to one of the main reasons why our employees don't feel engaged, followed a close second by company culture. Also extremely interesting. What I find most compelling about this, and this aligns with some of the research that we've done, is pay actually is fairly low on the scale here, which is interesting because we see through the work-life infinity loop work that there are so many other factors that contribute to someone feeling engaged in their work beyond things like pay and overall compensation. So this is really interesting. Aaron, LaTroy, anything you all want to comment on here, again, before we get into some of the statistics of turnover?
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
That lack of development and growth opportunities, like Allie mentioned, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. That's a really big conversation, and where a lot of companies are they don't know what to do. They don't know how to execute on that and do it effectively for everyone in the workforce today. So a little teaser, we'll have some tips and tricks here in a little bit.
Yeah, I co-sign on all of that, right? Like, we're going to talk about the results of this in just a second, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper. But I think everyone, regardless of how you answered, if you answered one of these, you are correct. And we're going to take a much deeper dive and talk about what these numbers mean and how they impact you and your organizations on a day-to-day.
Thank you both. LaTroy, if you want to take us through actually a couple of the, a couple of the statistics that we see around turnover trends, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. So talking through some of these numbers, when we talk about our research that we were able to conduct, the research identified for us more than 40 different factors that contribute to voluntary turnover. So we only listed a few of them for you, but there were over 40 that have impact on how employees are leaving the workforce, right? And then what we did is we took those factors and we put them into 6 unique buckets. So those buckets include pay, promotion, overtime and premium time, commuting, experience and tenure, and then other job characteristics. So when you look at all of these items, they can have a varying degree of impact depending on the industry and specific organization. But overall, pay and promotion, as expected, are the lead drivers of voluntary turnover. Employees are really cognizant of their income and they want more pay. And as we know, as we talk through things like pay equity and pay transparency, pay is always going to be a top of mind for your worksite employees, right? So the next most influential factors are related to the overtime and premium items. So those items are for our overtime employees, right? So when we talk about our non-exempt or employees who are paid through shift differentials. So we have to keep in mind when we're paying that, are we being competitive? Are we aligning ourselves with the market? So, overall pay as a part of the conversation, but then also the overtime elements of it for our non-exempt employees. What does that feel like for them? Are we being competitive? Are we making sure that they're satisfied and we're meeting them where they want to be? Now, here's an interesting piece. Commute time tends to actually be more important of a factor than experience and tenure. Now that, I have to say, was really eye-opening for me, but then I took a few moments to actually think about it quite a bit. And honestly, coming out of the pandemic, I'm not really that surprised. One of the things we learned through COVID, outside of how to make vegan sushi, which was my COVID takeaway, was the fact that commute time really factored into our employee experience, right? Traveling into work every day, whether you're driving and you're dealing with windshield time or you're commuting in via public transportation, those things really drive what the impact is to your employees. We don't want employees to feel burned out because they take a long commute into the office and, then they work all day long and then they have a really long commute home. So it's important to remember, commuting is something that we now have to consider in a post-COVID world. And at the same time, 5% of US employees leave their job every month on average. So in taking a moment to take that in, 5% of our US-based employees are exiting their jobs every single month, right? And then if you add on top of that, nearly 60% of them are actively looking for new jobs. So again, when you look at your workforce and you look at turnover and what it feels like for you, you want to keep this in mind because it's happening on a regular basis. In the US, overall production has increased while return on assets has steadily been decreasing year over year. So that's a result of all of the things that we're talking about, right? Production is up, but return on assets is not. Turnover has a huge impact to the bottom line. So we want to be mindful of that because while we think turnover doesn't impact us as much and it might be a part of the business or a part of the industry, generally speaking, higher turnover really has a significant impact to the bottom line and what organizations are able to do long-term for their employees. So at the most basic level, what this suggests for you is that your people and the teams that you create are key to your company's success and appropriately should be the main focus of all of your time, energy, and resources. If we don't focus on this, the impact is large. Turnover creates a loss of institutional knowledge, loss of matured skills, a loss of productivity, and a loss of continuity. So when we look at employees who are leaving the workforce, whether they are here 20 years or 20 plus years, or whether they're in their first 12 months of employment, there is huge impact to be seen and experienced by the organization, by the worksite employees, and by the culture overall, because it comes at a price. So engaging with your employees as a priority or as an early start, really sets the tone for the experience. I often share with my peers and with organizations that I support is that employee engagement starts at the application process and it grows from there. So if we start from there and we move forward from that point, we really have really set the standards and set the bar for what our employees want and need. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but I'm gonna toss it back to Allie because I think we might have another survey waiting out there.
That's right. Thank you so much, LaTroy, for going into that. I know a lot of different research and data contributed to that, so appreciate it. All right. Last poll question. Do you engage your employees differently across the generations in your workforce, like Gen X, Millennial, Boomers, in specific or unique ways? So as we've been doing for the last two, go ahead and select yes or no for this. Do you engage your employees differently across the generations in your workforce in specific or unique ways? Looks like we're rounding up to almost half of participants have submitted. We'll give it another few seconds again to get to a place where we can show the results. think this one's super interesting, and we're going to share a couple of case studies specifically about engaging multi-generations in a single workforce, especially now where we have up to 5 generations at the workforce at one time. All right, we have hit our numbers. Let's go ahead and show the results. Resounding no. 3/4 of the folks here are saying no, we don't engage employees differently dependent on their generation. About 1/4 are saying yes, which is great to see. Erin, any commentary on this before we dive into some of your generational work?
Yeah, I love this stuff. I think it is super interesting. And this is what we're seeing with a lot of our clients is they want to be able to effectively engage all of their employees, but they just don't know how, right? The old ways of how we've engaged our employees when maybe we had a couple of different generations in the workforce is not going to work anymore. Now we've got these 4 up to 5 generations. And HR departments, companies are like, what the heck do we even do? So this doesn't surprise me, and you all are not alone if you said no.
Awesome. Thanks, Erin. All right, let's go on to explore a little bit more about closing that generation gap. And Erin, I'll let you lead from here.
Perfect. Thank you, Allie. So our really fun generations that, first of all, I want to say your all's jobs are really tough. And guess what? We're just going to throw one more layer on there and make you wear one more hat when it comes to closing this generation gap. Like we've mentioned, we're in a really unique spot. This has never happened in the workforce before. We've got 4 up to 5 generations. And the question is, how in the heck do we effectively engage all of these generations so that it doesn't become a turnover problem like LaTroy was talking about, where it's not affecting our bottom line, but that at the core of it, we also really want to support our employees the way they want to and need to be supported. So we're going to quickly go in through all of these generations, both the 4 that we've got here. We're going to start with our baby boomers. They have been in the workforce the longest. They're experienced. They have all of our knowledge. And all they really want to hear is thank you, right? Like they want to be thanked. They want to be, they want people to tell them like, thank you for being here, for helping us through whatever it was as a company. But something really important here is this workforce, this specific piece of the workforce is about to retire. So a big question is, what do we do with that knowledge? And that's something that companies are really going to have to think through. And because of that, these employees are prioritizing benefits and compensation, obviously, right? This is a really big thing for them. And we need to make sure that we're supporting this pocket of our workforce with those things. And then we've got Generation X. Also, their experience, they've been in the workforce for a while. I hear from a lot of our Gen Xers. So I do a lot of this different workforce generations, and I'll ask people questions. My Gen Xers say, I want my paycheck and I want to go home. Like, that's it. I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to do a really good job. But then at the end of the day, this is a job and I want to go home. They're also prioritizing compensation benefits. So pay is still a really big factor. So we've kind of got this baby boomer Gen X on one side, and then the millennials come in. That's me. I feel like we kind of get a bad rap. But at the core of it, all we really want to do is be really innovative and creative. If we come into a company and we see that there's all of these old processes and they're not efficient, they're not effective, we want to be able to change those, make things streamlined, make those processes streamlined, and we want to have the creativity to do that. Another big thing, career development and opportunities. This is where that comes in. The millennials want a defined career path. They want to know what they're working towards. So if your company doesn't have defined career paths, or at least something that employees can work towards, I would look into where your options are there. And the reason for that is we've got Gen Z coming right in, and they also prioritize career growth and development. Welcome Gen Z to our conversation. If you are not ready for Gen Z, you better get ready. I made a little bit of a joke in this first one that they're taking over, but honestly, I think it says in here, like by the year 2030, they will be the largest portion of the workforce. So again, those ways that maybe we have worked to effectively engage our employees for years are not really going to work for Gen Z. These are the employees where they want to know that their work matters. They want to know that at the end of the day that they have done something to impact the company, impact the environment, impact the work around them. This is not a job, right? We mentioned the Gen X. It's a job potentially, and they're just going home, not for Gen Z. They want to know that your company is also doing things out in the community. Diversity matters. Social justice matters. They're also really stressed. This portion of the workforce, they want to be taken care of not only in things work-wise, but health and wellness is really important to them. And then also this personalization. So what we're seeing a lot with Gen Z is they're taking that creativeness to another level. They're crafting their own roles, and we see that a lot with our culture like Uber, Lyft, where they're kind of making their own way. They're making their own schedules. They really want that flexibility, right? So we just need to be cognizant of this as, like I mentioned, this is going to be our workforce. So start thinking about the things that we can do to effectively engage our Gen Zers. All right, lots of fancy words, right? So what does this look like in real life? And Allie and I have mentioned our talent offerings that we have here at ADP, where we get to do this stuff with clients every day, and it's a lot of fun. And if you're listening to all of this and you're like, where do I even start? Again, you're not alone. Every company is like this. So when we take a look at our companies, we do a full-scale analysis. We want to understand the metrics. We haven't talked a lot about data today, but data is a really big piece and portion of what we do day in and day out here at ADP. We've got a lot of data, and we want to make sure that our clients are looking at the data and we're making data-driven recommendations from that, okay? So this is a case study here. This is one of our nonprofit clients. They're about 150, 200 employees. They came to us. They said, hey, we're seeing turnover. We're not quite sure what's happening. Okay, great. Let's look at the metrics. Let's pull the data. Let's figure out what the story is, what's happening behind the scenes. So in the last 12 months, they had lost 25 employees, but 13 of those were new hires. That's a big piece here. And when we look at that onboarding piece that Allie mentioned before, most employees are not onboarded effectively. So if you can pull that data and understand in that first year how many employees are leaving, if it's a big portion, there may be a really big opportunity for you as a company to effectively engage those new hires. And that's what this client was seeing here. So they've got that turnover problem. A lot of those are new hires. And then on the other end of that, 20 of their key employees are slated to retire within the next 8 years. This isn't a super large company. So 20 employees is a really big portion of their workforce. But oh wait, there's more. 8 of those are projected to leave within the next year. That's a huge portion of their population. So not only do they have people leaving, their new hires leaving, they have these people that have been there for a really long time that are also about to retire. So a lot of areas for opportunity here. And one of the metrics that we always pull, and I was really curious in this one, is that headcount by generation. They have 5 different generations. They've got their traditionalists. We didn't even talk about our poor traditionalists today, all the way down to Gen Z. And if you look at the percentages here, you can see millennials the highest percentage, but Gen Z is coming up, right? If we were to look at this here in the next couple of years, I bet that will at least triple. So we have to start putting in some effective strategies now to make sure that we are touching all pieces of this. And again, you can kind of picture that infinity life cycle or infinity cycle in your head, right? So what are the strategies? What do we even start to do here? Going to come back to that career growth, career development. That is huge. So these new hires get in the door. They're probably not onboarded effectively, but then, and they may be able to forgive us for that, right? But then if we don't have career paths, career development plans, a way to invest in them, they're most likely going to leave. So that's a big one. Encouraging employees also to take ownership of that, right? Giving them opportunities, but giving them the information and letting them take ownership of that so they also feel an ownership in their career development, which is huge. Next thing, recognition. This is a tough one for me because I think recognition, well, I know recognition is important, but everybody likes to be recognized in a different way, right? So that's where companies really have to figure out, okay, what makes sense? We may not be able to make everybody happy, but is there something that we can do? Sorry, I'm sick this week. Okay, and our last thing is that employee wellness. So I mentioned that with our Gen Zers, but really all employees. If there's anything that you all can do as a company to support every piece of that life, we've got a ton of stuff here as an ADP employee that, you know, beyond my workday that ADP can help with. So it's thinking about our employees as humans and how can we support every piece of that. So again, this is what we get to do every day with our clients, help them build and execute these strategies. And I think the biggest thing is taking a step back, right? And I know that's hard. Like I said, y'all are busy. We've got our day-to-day tactical stuff. So take a step back. What are maybe some of those low-hanging fruit things? And we're not going to be able to tackle all of this at once, right? This is going to be a process. So if this is overwhelming, again, everyone is really in this same boat. I promise you. Take it in bite-sized pieces and, just start to kind of build that strategy. All right, Allie, I'm going to send it back to you.
Thank you so much, Erin. That was so insightful. And what I love about when you look at these employee engagement strategies that Erin just laid out, as we talked about that work-life and infinity blueprint, you can see like providing opportunities and pathways for advancement, very clearly aligned to what we talked about with being inspired and uniquely valued, encouraging, development and upskilling, all about that core need of helping our employees feel more productive, recognition, obviously feeling uniquely valued, and supporting aspects of wellness really aligns to that feeling of inspired, like you are heard, you have a voice, that you're as invested in the organization as the organization is invested in you. So love that these really align directly to those core needs that we spoke about earlier. Thank you. Our next case study, LaTroy will be taking us through. LaTroy, would love to hear how you have helped the strategy, the employee engagement strategy with this organization here.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we love being able to do this every day. And when building a strategy for success, it is key. It's so important to listen to the voice of your employees. A lot of times it's a really big miss for leaders and decision makers because we're so busy running our organizations and managing the day-to-day and trying to put out all of the fires that we get in a week that we forget that the employees have a voice and we're missing out on what they're saying, therefore missing out on opportunities to engage with them. So I chose an example in which it was actually a medical wellness organization, about 80 employees or so, and they were based both in New York City and Washington, D.C. They were experiencing an intense amount of turnover, right? So for a group that's about 80 employees, they had about 47 employees who left within a 12-month period. And then when you dig a little bit deeper into that data and you look at, where the employees are and where they fit, right? 23 of those employees were under 12 months or 12 months and under. So for me, when you look at that, those are huge red flags and things that we need to start dissecting right away. So turnover with any organization always has a foundation. There's always a story to it. And whether that story is a part of leadership or culture, the market, or if it's competition based, understanding these nuances is the key to being able to course correct and turn this experience around. So this organization in particular was holding on to a lot of really key data that could help them unlock the story to why their turnover experience was so high. So one of the key questions that we looked at or we asked this organization is, what are your employees telling you via exit interviews, right? What are they telling you is the reason why they're leaving? Even if you're conducting exit interviews during an involuntary termination, what are your employees sharing with you, right? Again, the organization was so focused on trying to hurry up and get that new replacement in that they didn't take a moment to understand what they needed to correct to change that experience for any incoming associates or any potential prospects, right? So we looked at their exit interviews and really dug into that data. So next we talk about headcount by generation, another analytic that we absolutely love, right? Because again, what we are talking about is the 4 or 5, arguably, different generations in the workforce. And we have to look at the organization. If you're primarily Gen Z, which in this case, that organization was, now we have to look at it from a different lens, right? The bulk of your employees are leaving. The bulk of your employees are Gen Z. So what are we not doing correctly, right? Are we putting all of our employees' needs in one box, or are we really taking into consideration the needs and desires of the different generations? So the first thing we did was unpack their recruiting and hiring practices, right? So by reviewing those practices, we were able to look at things like their company website. I'm super passionate on all things diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when I have conversations with peers, HR business partners, or organization leaders, one of the first things I do is go and take a peek at their website. How inclusive is it, right? If I look at your website, can I visualize myself working in your organization? What are your interviewing processes like? How do you interview? Do you have blind resumes? Are there team interviews? Is it just one person interviewing? Those things really drive the experience. We work with our recruiting partners on a regular basis, and interviewing, a boomer, right? Or a traditionalist or a Gen Z associate is a world away from interviewing a Gen Zer. And if there's Gen Zers out there, virtual high fives to you, because you are really changing the world and the world of work in a way like we've never seen before. But we embrace it and we learn from it. So understanding those nuances is really key. But in addition to that, there was so much more, right? We talked about the generations, but they had zero diversity in their leadership, right? Like there was zero diversity in the C-suite, in middle management, and even in frontline management. So that sends a message. And when we talk about the generations, right, our Gen Zers are looking for diversity. They're looking for inclusion. They want to feel like they belong. They're looking at corporate, social responsibility. Like, how are you showing up for the community around you that you serve? So it's really important to look at all those things. And in this particular case, we went through the process of introducing a leadership mentorship program that was designed to create a path for more diversity in leadership, right? And when you bring in diversity, whether it's on the leadership level or any level, you also bring in diversity of thought. And bringing diversity of thought to the conversation brings a unique perspective to all of the different layers and conversations throughout the organization. So while you might view things through one lens, your Gen Z associates, right, or your new associates that are coming right out of school may have a different perspective, and they have a thumb on the pulse of what your customers want or what will work for your employees. So it's really important to have those unique perspectives at the table. And then in addition, we conducted a compensation analysis. We went and looked at their total compensation offerings. We did a pay equity audit, which uncovered gaps across all of their employees. So again, in a world of Gen Z employees, right, they're the new group joining the fun workforce, but they're really changing the conversation. Gen Z associates are not afraid to talk about their pay, right? They're probably somewhere right now as we do this webinar talking about their salaries to other associates across your business. So keep that in the back of your mind, because pay equity, pay transparency, these things are coming. They're not going away. And this is a part of what we can expect in moving forward with the future of work. So we were able to look at a pay equity audit and really reassess what associates pay was looking like to make sure, again, that we were competitive in our market, competitive, across the board, and that there was equity, equal pay for equal work, right? Like that's what we're talking about here. That's what we've been talking about for well over a decade now. We're just really seeing it come to the forefront. And then we talk about community outreach. So again, having a thumb on the pulse of what's going on in your business is very, very important, but you also need to have your thumb on the pulse of what's going on outside of your organization, right? So again, when you look at your community and the communities that you serve within your business, are your employees representative of those communities? Are you giving back to those communities? Our Gen Z associates and our millennial associates are so conscious of these things, and they make a decision as to whether or not they want to go with you by looking at simply how active you are in the community, how inclusive you are. We talk about things like the cost of the closet for our LGBTQIA plus associates. Not being able to come out at work really has a direct impact to your bottom line. If your employees can't be their most authentic selves at work, they don't stay long, they're not as productive, and there's major impact. So again, take all of these things into consideration when you're driving these conversations. Now, as we've reviewed throughout this conversation, Gen Z employees, they're just not shy. They're going to tell you what they want. And whether it's total comp, diversity, they're talking about all these things. Employees are not afraid to walk away if they feel there are roadblocks to any of their needs and their success. Employers, must consider the impact to their business overall from both an internal and an external perspective when they're building strategies that makes them appealing to prospective candidates and for customers. So wrapping this up here before we close out, the generational shift in the workplace is happening, and it's happening fast. We can't deny that. Companies that choose to embrace the change also have to keep an eye out for what drives their employees. What's important to them? We can easily assume that what everybody wants or is motivated by are the same things, but that's not always true. And it's so important for you to meet your employees where they are today and where they will be at the different phases of their professional and personal lives. So I'll leave it at that, and I will hand it back over to you, Allie.
Thank you so much, LaTroy. I really appreciate you taking us through that, and can clearly again see, especially those elements of a sense of belonging, to feel inspired and uniquely valued coming out in these employee engagement strategies. Really appreciate that. All right, we are coming to the close of our presentation, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. I've seen a lot of questions come in through the chat on our side, which is amazing. So first, just want to thank LaTroy and Aaron for these incredibly helpful case studies, and want to briefly just share how we at ADP think about aligning our services and offerings to those 4 core needs that we've been discussing. So, we ask our clients if they're providing their employees with the tools that they need to succeed. And at ADP, we think about how we deliver on things like onboarding strategy and support and development courses and trainings to bolster that sense of productivity. When we ask our clients if their employees feel like they belong to a strong team, we at ADP then help to offer company culture assessments and employee surveys and offer leadership development and coaching to inspire that sense of belonging. When we think about how our clients are actively inspiring their employees to leverage their strengths more at work, we then offer compensation benchmarking, purpose-driven support through things like the Employee Assistance Program. And then finally, when we ask our clients if their employees could identify what are the skills and contributions that are most valued in their organizations, we help by offering things like rewards and recognition programs and succession planning. And of course, all of this is in addition to the best-in-class employee benefits, company policies and compliance, and outsourcing support that really allows our clients to focus on these strategic components of engaging their workforce. So you'll all be receiving a 2-pager on the details of this presentation. You'll get a link to dive deeper into the research itself and some of the employee stories that we uncovered along the way. So thank you all so much for the incredible discussion and presentation. And we're going to open it up for Q&A now with a little more than 10 minutes left. Rashonda, if you can pull some of the questions from the Q&A chat for us, that would be awesome.
Of course. And as you guys mentioned before, there are tons of questions that are coming in. Like, it just keeps rolling in. But I do want to get started. So, Erin, what specific examples could you give that would help me engage my multi-generational employees?
Great question. The first one I'm going to give you is going to be very easy. A very simple question to your employees. How can we better support you as an employee? So whether it's HR asking, whether it's their manager asking, if you can find a way to do it anonymously would be my suggestion to understand what those employees really need, right? Very simple question. The next thing that maybe isn't so simple, that's maybe going to take a little bit of thought, is having defined organizational goals. And if you don't have those, I would highly recommend that you build just a few and make those visible to your employees. And the reason for that is employees want to know what they're working towards. So once those goals are defined, clearly defined, have each manager build team goals. And then another layer of that is employee goals. And then how that all ties into those organizational goals. And have the managers check on it during their one-on-ones. And that will clearly help employees see how their work, what they're doing day to day, is really impacting the greater goals and the greater company goals.
Awesome. Excuse me. Awesome. So I actually have another audience member question that came in for LaTroy. Do the things that companies did pre-pandemic to engage employees, like ping pong tables, communal workspaces, etc., do you think they still work now?
Yeah. Oh, the good old ping pong table. Yes. So yes, those things do still work. But because our workforce is so diverse between remote associates, hybrid associates, in-office staff, you have to get really creative. And again, add on that layer that we've been talking about all afternoon today of the multi-generational workforce, you have to get super creative. So, look at what you're doing today. And again, we talked about surveying. Ask your employees what they like to see. There are small nuances, that you can embed into the business to change the feel of it, right? We have remote associates who join meetings virtually. Find a way to make everybody a part of the conversation. Sometimes you get in a meeting and it's just the people in the room talking. I love the idea of a round robin where everyone goes around and speaks and shares because it ultimately creates a sense of connection. And that speaks to everyone, regardless of generation. We all want to feel connected. Again, we want to feel like we belong, uniquely valued and being able to contribute something. So starting simple with small meetings, but if you have, virtual, employees, you can get creative with your virtual team meetings. In office, you can have in-office events, right, designed to connect associates. But also don't lose sight of, the Gen Z group of employees that are still they're just coming out of college, right? They're just going into the workforce for the first time. So they don't have the experience of necessarily working from home. So they can't wait to get into an office and have an overall major experience with respect to getting in, going to the water station or the coffee station and talking with their peers. That is something that is brand new for them. So while we're talking about hybrid employees as a result of COVID, we have to remember there's a whole new generation of the workforce that's going in that won't know anything about what that was like. So those things will still work. And we just have to implement and bring in some new thoughts and examples of how to connect. So that's a really great question. And thank you for that.
Of course. And Ali, I know you touched on this, but an audience member actually wrote in, what trends should companies be thinking about for the future of the workplace?
Yeah, thank you. I love this question. And it's something that we think about all the time, sort of forecasting what the world might look like 2, 5, 10 years from now. And what we find, and research is telling us, is, we may be beginning to see the end of sort of narrow jobs where your job is on a one-page job description, and this is where it starts and ends. And you hear people saying, well, that's not my job. We may be starting to enter this world of hiring for skills, where there's more fluidity between what we do if we hire for the people who have the right skill set to get a litany of different jobs done. So organizations definitely experimenting with using skills as the main way of hiring rather than specific jobs themselves, which leads to more innovation and agility. We're also hearing a lot about how technology is going to enhance human performance rather than replace human performance. So certainly AI is top of mind for everyone. And there may be some jobs where AI will take some of the manual efforts out of it. But how does AI and the future of technology help to actually enhance and optimize the roles that our humans are performing to create more progressive ways to do things, different ways of doing things, and sort of shifting the status quo? Another trend that we're certainly seeing, and we've talked about it here a lot, LaTroy just touched on it as well, is that the future of the workplace is not going to be where work gets done, but how work gets done. And so we're certainly seeing that greater interconnectivity between home and work and remote work and location and modality are going to become secondary to the needs that workers have. And as long as the work is getting done, it's more that how rather than where. And finally, the last trend that I just want to touch on, and again, LaTroy and Aaron both spoke about this in terms of the Gen Z expectations in the workplace, but there is a large call to action for organizations to actually take on more human values and show up in more human ways. And so Gen Z is going to be looking at organizations almost like they're courting a partner or someone who they're going to spend their life with. Do they represent the same values I have? Do our purposes align with what I want and what the organization wants? Are they showing up in ways that make me feel good about who I am and the work that I'm doing, whether that be focusing on DE&I, social responsibility, sustainability, really showing up for the world in a much more global setting? That's certainly a trend that we're seeing alive and well today and will only get stronger, we hypothesize, in the coming years. So thanks, Rashonda. Any other questions that we heard from the audience?
Well, they're definitely continuing to roll in, but I think we have enough time to squeeze out one more question, if that's okay with everyone.
Great.
So an audience member wrote, do you expect to see a shift in benefits as more Gen Zers are entering the workforce and baby boomers are leaving?
That's a great question. LaTroy, I'll start with you if you'd like to talk about whether we're going to start to see maybe shifts in benefits as Gen Zs are entering and baby boomers are exiting. And then if we have time, Aaron, would love for you to comment as well.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in on that. Thank you. So yes, we will see a shift in benefit offerings, but essentially, it all comes down to education around benefits. Benefits aren't intuitive. So the more as an organization you can educate your employees on how best to leverage their benefits, that really doesn't matter to what the generation might be. We look at things that are new, more new in our industry, like high deductible health plans, right? Which are designed to be more consumer driven. It makes your employees really think about what they're going to participate in. While those traditionally have resonated with our Gen Z associates and maybe some of our millennials, what we're seeing as we see boomers exit the workforce and then return, right? So we've got boomers that are coming back because they're maybe just not ready to retire, or they want to come back into the workforce because they're bored at home. They're coming back and they're learning that these high deductible health plans actually will work for them. And they would have, years ago. So there's going to be a lot of nuances, but what we're seeing is that, health and wellness are really things that resonate with Gen Z, but thanks to COVID, we all realize that health and wellness is super important. So as the horizon of healthcare offerings change, that will be something that we will see across different generations, what resonates. The key to success in that is just offering a diverse plan offering across all of your employees, because as we learn from Gen Zers and all the generations, one size doesn't fit all. So diversity in your offering is really going to be what's successful, making sure you offer something that resonates with all of your employees, regardless of where they are on the generation spectrum.
Awesome. Thank you so much, LaTroy. I know we are just at the last minute, so Rashonda, I'll pass it back to you to close us out for the day.